Do challenges, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Litzar, happy to be your host, along with Vern Schellinger. We're here to answer your job search questions and would love to just talk about anything you'd like. So if you have a question, let us know. If you have a topic you'd want us to dive into. Oh, and Sam, just so you know, since I know you're new, so just 2 seconds about our backgrounds. So I'm a career coach and also a recruiter. Been doing both of those things for a very long time. Vern is a former human resources executive who's also turned career coach. So we see things from both sides of the hiring aisle, from the perspective of employers and job seekers, but kind of a 360 perspective on it. Okay, so that's the why we can give this kind of advice. So who would like to kick us off with a question?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Good morning. So going back to our conversation about the resume a few weeks ago, I'm struggling to keep the bullets as I'm doing this rewrite to actually before I go there, can you just provide or remind me when I'm writing a bullet, okay, on the resume, single thought per bullet, combine maybe two thoughts per bullet, or is there a general rule of thumb to keep the information short, concise, and all that?
Right. So people do these resume bullets different ways. So let me just kind of go high level, like give you a little mini speech about it. Okay.
Please.
So first of all, and this is important, your resume bullets, ready, should be accomplishments, not job duties. Let's just sit there for a moment, okay? Most people don't realize that. In fact, of all the, I'm sure Vern has had the same situation. Most of the resumes we see, people just write job duties. Did this, did this, did this, did this. That's not what people are looking for. They're looking for accomplishments. What do you accomplish? Now, if you want to have a little, what I'm going to call a responsibilities section, okay, underneath your title. So you have, let's just say you have company name, dates, title. Underneath your title, you actually should have just a little short paragraph, let's say 3 lines of your responsibilities. And you don't literally have to say responsible for, although as if to say, right? So, led a team of blah, blah, doing blah, 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 budget of this, staff number of this, generally what your responsibilities were for that job. Underneath that, accomplishment, 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 accomplishment. Now, what kind of accomplishments? What are we talking about? So first of all, let me just give you the how, then we'll talk about the what. So there are different formulas that people use. They're actually all the same, but people have different nomenclature. Some call it a SAR story, a STAR story, CAB, car. It's all the same stuff. I'll just tell you one that I like. It's called CAB, Challenge, Action, Benefit. Challenge, Action, Benefit. What was the challenge the organization was facing? What were the actions you took? And what was the benefit to the organization? Now, I just said that and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is like a long story. How am I going to shove this into a few lines? Well, what you do, that
hence my question. Yes.
Right. So that was my preamble to answer your question. So what I just shared with the CAB story, that the story is what you articulate in an interview, an actual story. In the resume, you got to make that thing really tight. So here's the answer to your question. So what I like to do is create bullets that are, let's say 3 lines, maybe 4, 3-ish lines. Okay. Some people go shorter than that. And they go like 1 line. I think that's a little too short for a really solid story. And what I typically do in the writing of, and I am, by the way, Sam, I'm a resume writer and a LinkedIn writer and all of that. So that's my lens on this. Is actually what I'll typically do is do, so, like the CAB, right? So not the challenge part, but the action and the benefit, or you could say the action and the result. So it could be either, you can do whichever way you want. You could start with the result, increased revenues by X% through blah, blah actions, right? Or the other way around, spearheaded blah, blah program resulting in blah, blah results. Something like that. Okay. So it can be, it's fine if it's 2 sentences, not a problem, right? So maybe 1 sentence is the action, 1 is the result, or vice versa, but it gets to the point. But here's even more important than all of that. All right. Now this is a stylistic thing that I talk about from the lens of a recruiter. Okay? Yes, I'm a resume writer, but I remember I see everything from the lens of a recruiter. And that is to have your accomplishment stories labeled. Okay.
Mm.
What I mean by that is, and I'm going to show this to you in a second. What I mean by that is that you want your accomplishment stories to be labeled with a skill. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, you want the recruiter to scan down the page and quickly pick up the keywords that they need to see that are related to the job, because you're going to be writing accomplishment stories, but you want the skill labels. I always put them in bold, right to the left of the bullet, that need to be customized to the job. What most people think is that they just have like a generic resume and that's what they send in. I'm telling you, 98% of candidates do this. And 98% of recruiters like throw up their hands like, wait, you know what? We can't, we're not mind readers. So you give this document and it's got a whole bunch of bullets without labels, just accomplishment. It's want for us, because recruiters scan, they don't read. Applicant tracking systems, which are the databases that a lot of large company recruiters use, large companies use, they just scan for keywords, right? So if your resume is not highly customized to the search, we're missing each other. They've got these keywords that they're looking for. You don't have them. We can't find you. You might be a highly qualified person, but unless you present that document to us in a way we can read, right? It's like an advertising document. I mean, a company could be fantastic, but unless they have all the different ways to reach you, like the billboard and the website that has like, the catchy icon or the phraseology that's going to match, who you are as a demographic. Like, think about any company, the packaging in the grocery store. Like, I mean, there's a million things to catch your attention quickly. You're not going to read all those ingredients unless you're first attracted to the package. Right? The packaging of this resume is extremely important. So give me one. I'm sorry, I'm talking and trying to multitask here. Give me a second. I want to pull up this sample resume. I think I've shown this to you guys very recently, but give me a sec here.
The other thing to think about as Cher is pulling that up is active verb, what you did,
Yes.
what were the results?
Yes.
Active verb, implemented, created, increased, whatever the verb is, again, and then what is it that you did and what were the results of that? And
exactly. So the way that I do my resumes is, first of all, at the top, I don't have a lot of fluff. Okay. Recruiters do not read fluff. That whole like long summary paragraph, they skip over it. And the reason is because it's so many people say the same stuff. A lot of people in those opening paragraphs will either say like 25 years of experience. By the way, if you're trying to avoid age discrimination, do not mention how many years of experience you have. But besides that, a lot of people in the summary paragraph will say, oh, blah, blah industries, blah, blah skills, soft skills, hard skills, I'm a team player, all these things. And we just sort of gloss over it mostly. Okay. You can use this bit of real estate very well. You don't have to, it doesn't have to look exactly like this, but you could put just keywords, what you do, the sector you serve, if you are sectorally based, your key competencies. If you have a particular, let's say you're in the tech world, right? Like Nathan, you have certain kind of technology skills you want to put in. You could expand this box. You could have a separate box, but keep it all keyword focused, not narratives. People, we don't read narratives in this top section. We'll read keywords. But down here is what I'm talking about in terms of the labeling. So you see how these bullets are like 3-4 lines, okay? But they all have a skill label. So if the employer wants to know you've got media relations experience, they can quickly scan down the page in 2 seconds. I'm not kidding, 2 seconds, see media relations, screen you in, because this is how recruiters do it, right? They have a bunch of resumes and they do, so to speak, A pile, B pile, C pile, as if, right? You want to get into the A pile. So like, great, I'm going to screen in Nathan. Then they might do a deeper look before the interview. Say, oh, okay, what's that bullet, that media relations thing? Got it. And then maybe ask a question about it. And all of these bullets, these labels can be customized. So usually you can keep the same accomplishment, but you can change the label, because every one of your stories has a lot of skill sets baked into it. So I call this one media relations, but maybe it could be, I don't know, earned media. Now that's a comms term. Diana would know, right? It's similar stuff, but it's like just a slightly different way of phrasing it because the job description said earned media, right? If that makes sense, right? Or like here I say web project management, but it could be web design or it could be vendor relations or whatever. Okay, just depends on what the employer is looking for. And the other thing too is you can take bullets off, and you probably want to do that sometimes because if you have an accomplishment story that's off brand or it doesn't relate to the job, it could be confusing for the employer. Like, well, they talked about blah blah blah, but our job is blah blah blah, and that might mean that they're thinking that you want to do this other thing, right? It's customize. So that's a very long-winded answer, but
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for the refresher. Yeah, this was great. Yeah,
If
it's
I
funny.
could,
You mentioned the
if
just one more comment. I actually had a conversation with a recruiter yesterday. Actually, somebody I used to work with in staffing, and she said exactly the same thing you just did about confusing. So you're applying for X, and you're advertising you do Y.
That's right.
They like, what is this?
So
So, yeah.
my example, and Vern, definitely want to hear your thoughts on all this.
Yeah.
My classic example I give is many years ago. I was doing a search for an executive assistant, and the employer was interviewing this person, and the employer asked a very innocent question. She said to the candidate, "So what's your greatest accomplishment?" And the candidate launched into the story about this amazing conference that she planned. I mean, a beautiful story, right? Employer left the room and said, "Well, that's a great story, but it makes me think she wants to be a meeting planner." This is an executive assistant job. She didn't get the job because the candidate was like, "This is my accomplishment." But because it was off brand for the job, the employer thought that she was looking to have a different career field, right? So you've got to be really careful, both in your resume and certainly in your interviews, as to which stories you bring out that prove to the employer that you are minimizing their risk. I always talk about this. Employers are risk averse. They need to know that you not only can do that job, but that you want to do that job, that you can do the job and you want to do the job. The can part is accomplishment. The want to is only using the accomplishments that relate to the job and not using the ones that don't. And then, of course, in the interview, same concept. Vern?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to what Shira's already said. I'll just give you again a different perspective. You've only got so much real estate on 2 pages, and most of them are 2 pages. Maybe it's 2.5, but you only got so much real estate, and so you want to make everything you put there as Shira said, as pertinent, as specific to that particular job. And I can remember actually reading resumes. I'm hiring for a director of human resources, and the resume says responsible for hiring, staffing, compensation, and benefits. And I'm sitting there saying, duh. I mean, if you're a director of human resources, aren't you responsible for all that stuff? That's like a given. It's just wasted. It doesn't tell me anything that I probably don't already know. If you're applying for a director of human resources, I would hope you'd have at least those basic skills, as opposed to, again, the active verb, what you did. Now, if somebody had a bullet point that said recruited X number of employees over a 3-year period with a retention rate of 92%,
right,
that says this person knows recruiting and they're very successful at it in terms of retention. That's a powerful bullet point. That catches my attention.
right. That's right.
Yeah, so I tried to jump in, and it's a good thing Vern spoke up because it goes with active versus passive voice. So additionally, a LinkedIn audit program flagged the word successfully, like successfully how, successfully by how much, successfully what. So those are kind of weak words as opposed to specifically with a number or accomplished within budget, within time, or something like that. So that's something I flagged on my resume.
And I want to just actually jump off of that because, not every profession is able to quote metrics. Right? not all of you can say percentage of this and numbers of that and dollars of the other. I get it. Like, for example, let's say a person's a lobbyist, right? Many people in DC are lobbyists. They can't, there's like, what kind of metrics are you going to use, right? So you speak in terms of, increased, satisfaction of this, or, basically you're trying to say you move the football down the field. So you can use words like increase and decrease, but you may not have a tangible metric, and that's okay, as long as you're actually speaking to the result, right? So that person would say, built a coalition, to defeat blah, blah legislation, and, whatever was successfully defeated or whatever, but they can't actually, there's no numbers around that. You just talk about the process and what the hopefully the positive outcome was. So don't worry too much about the numbers.
Yeah, I guess with the lobbyist, it would be to whom, to what, to whom did you speak as far as who was satisfied.
The who, exactly, the who and how they did it, right?
Yeah, and there are bullet points. There are certain things that you want to communicate to the reader of the resume that just won't have that metric involved in it. In human resources, if you're in a larger organization and you're the senior HR person, typically you're doing some coaching and consulting with the CEO, with the CFO, with the, so you develop, positive working relationships with the, C-suite executives within the company. That might be an important bullet point, but again, there's no metrics. You can't say how good or bad the relationship was. You can't measure it. So. Yeah.
And you can also, by the way, if you're customized, you want to do a little deeper customization, you can look at the job description and see if there are certain notable soft skills. Now, when I say notable, I'm not just talking about being a team leader, like most people want that, right? But I'm talking about things that might have to do with, I don't know, negotiations or influencing without authority or things like that are little kind of extra niche. You don't have to customize that way, although you definitely want to talk about it in the interview. In the resume, if you notice in the job description that they're calling out certain things, you may want to do a little bit of slight tweaking there, and that could be helpful in the formation of your resume bullet. But really, it's the hard skills that the employer is looking for when they scan down the page. Customer service, media relations, project management, board relations, those financial analysis, those kinds of things, not the influencing and the team leadership as much. Not in the quick resume scan. The boom, 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 all those little bolded labels is going to be hard skills, not soft skills. Yeah, Judah?
Yes. So yeah, I have this huge project coming up that's due. And I had figured out a way to merge like two or three different documents electronically. And so now the Word document just looks crazy from the merge that I did electronically. So I've been really anxious about, what to do, how to handle it. Should I even start over? And that would be starting over would make me have to manually put in like 100 pages of changes. So any advice or tips, suggestions on that?
Alexander?
So I would start, I would take everything and put it into a text file, text only. My preferred tool is Notepad++, just because reasons, but it could be just regular Notepad. And then after you have it in a text file and it looks good in a text file, then you take that and you put it in a Word document, and then you can format it a lot easier. As a software developer, for me, I use HTML first, just because I know, and it's easy for me. But then I translate that to Doc, and I'll tell you, 20 years of software development and Microsoft Word defeats me. So that should tell you something. But if you put it in a text file, you take a lot of garbage that Microsoft Word might put into it, and it's gone. And by garbage, sometimes when you do a copy paste, it's not just text. There's other stuff that you have no idea the formatting basically, and it'll copy it in. And that's why my preferred tool was Notepad++. That's a programmer's tool because it absolutely does not accept anything except text and nothing else. So, and
Okay.
also that's also helpful in the future with ATX systems, because if you have an ATX that does not parse your resume, the Word document resume, then it'll probably parse the text a lot better. And you always have the option of putting in multiple files for the recruiter.
Okay, yeah. So it also has track changes from this particular coworker, from that particular coworker. Their names are in there in the document because it's a conglomeration of about 8 different coworkers of mine that put their track changes in this document. So I'm just like, why did I do that? So I didn't know if you had any advice pertaining to that.
Alexander,
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Was this a resume or something
no,
else?
so actually, so we're actually trying to focus a little bit on as on job search, kind of work. So I'm wondering, so that's the nature of our call here today. I'm wondering, Alexandra, would you be open to having a quick offline chat with Still? Would that be okay? Maybe you could put your email in the chat box.
Sure.
That would be great. Thank you so much. So Jude, I know you had a question, and then we'll go to Ann and Nathan.
Unmute myself here. Oh, there I am. A new person comes, so of course everything gets shuffled there. I couldn't find myself. Hi everybody, good morning. 2-part question. Actually, I'm going to try and put another piece in here. I've talked to you before about being independent versus getting a job. As I've connected more and more with graphic designers in particular, and designers, I see a lot of them, like senior people at really good companies, having their own website, having their own business. One just recently saying, full-time employee and, freelance designer. Your thoughts on that in general, in terms of getting a job? And the other piece I would like to just throw out there is I have a really interesting job position at AAAS, American Association for the Advancement of Science, being an association. Thoughts, and this being the place for association. And of course, my star connection, Shira Lotzar, is constantly showing up in these connected people. Oh, of course there's Shira. Of course Shira knows this person. So the self versus employee, how that goes when you're applying for a job. And then how, in the context of association, what are some of the unique factors?
So can you go ahead and I'm so sorry. Can you go ahead and restate the first question, Judah?
Sure. And as I apply for a job, I'm also interested in continuing serving clients as an independent designer.
I see.
So, and I've seen more and more, high profile, very successful designers. When I go through their, check them out, look at their website, they're like, talking about themselves as being a designer, plus they have a full-time job. So it seems like it's not unusual from a recruiter's perspective, presenting myself as, that I'm working as a, doing both of those at the same time.
Right. And so the question is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, on one level, is it okay? And if so, how do you,
especially in a profession like yours in designing, designer work, or as you know, you guys are called creatives, so creatives often have what the young people call side hustles. Okay, that's kind of normal. It is very normal, and nobody would take any issue with that whatsoever. So whether you're a writer, you're a designer, editor, whatever it is, you can say, I don't know what is it Judalyn Designs or something? I mean, whatever your company is, it's fine to say that, and then you can even just say in parentheses, freelancer, or you can even just call yourself as a title, freelance web designer, and people will understand, okay, sure, he's got this thing on the side, no big deal. I would say of all the professions out there that are side hustle worthy, the designer, creative, those you folks, writer, creatives, it's very easily explainable. So you have your normal job, and then you've got your freelance work.
Yeah. Judah, any sense of the people that you've seen or talked to or know that are in those dual roles? Did they did they start with a corporation, work their way up, become a creative designer, and then start their side hustle? Or, and I don't know that, I mean, they could have gotten to where they are numerous different ways, but I'm just wondering if that has any bearing on it.
That's a great question. I guess that would pretty much be an inquiry on an individual basis. I could,
Yeah,
connect these
yeah.
people and say, but my sense is that they kind of always worked hand in hand, because as we're trained, when you're working, you're not always able to further your skills. So you'll take on a side job or a personal project to continue to, expand your skills in your portfolio. So from my experience, they often go, we'll lead a dual life. So I would think it would be something that would go all along the process.
Have you had a chance to actually connect with any one of those types of individuals in your network and talk to them about exactly about this type of thing?
Up to the last point, yeah, I've connected with somebody. I actually have somebody in mind that I'd like to talk to them, like saying, "I'm seeing you have a full-time position here, and yet you're doing this other work."
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And also, from my thinking in terms of expanding my network, to be able to, partner with people or pass work off or subcontract out. It's good to know if they're available for work and what their situation is. So that's a great suggestion, Vern. Thank you.
Yeah, if anybody who's doing a side hustle or even want to do self-employment, that what Vern's just talking about and Judah is very important, is what we call alliance partnerships, where you go and find people who are other consultants who do either what you do or similar work to that you do, or like just, are on the side, right? Like sort of like touch, right? Or in a similar profession. You guys can help each other, refer business. If one of you has a project that's too big, you could bring the other person in. If you're too busy, you can offload it to that person. If you have expertise that they don't, or vice versa, you can, bring them in or refer them to business. So having alliance partners is terrific. And even for just regular job seekers, right? We talk about this in networking all the time, finding people in the same thing, who either do what you do or do work that's similar to what you do, can be very helpful, because those are the people who can refer you opportunities that are not right for them, but could be right for you. Right.
Yeah.
It's always very important to find people who are in like professions and like industries. Okay. All right. Then Nathan, and then Anuja.
On LinkedIn, when there's a job posting, it'll have some stats like when it was posted a week ago or whatever, however many hours or one day. But then they also have a stat like 9 applied and 3 yesterday, or 3 this week. And so when you're looking at a job position and on LinkedIn and you hit the apply button, I mean, how does LinkedIn know that the people actually applied, as opposed to just click the apply to get to then the company's website that has their own portal? Like, how
you're only going to see if you literally applied on the LinkedIn job board. If you sent your application on the link, yes, it's not going to know if the person went to the website, to the employer's website directly. That's off radar, right?
So that apply button on LinkedIn, like I just looked at a random one. You click the apply button and it sends you to the organization's website where it talks about the position, and the organization's own website has to apply. You click their own portal.
That I don't know. Okay, all I can tell you is from a recruiter's perspective. So when I've occasionally posted a job on LinkedIn's job board, candidates will apply into LinkedIn's job board, and I will see a list of resumes on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Those are the applications that LinkedIn is likely saying, this is who applied. I wasn't aware of the fact that some employers say apply now and then take you to their website. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that everybody actually has to go through LinkedIn's portal. So that's news to me.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
So the LinkedIn portal, is that the LinkedIn Easy Apply button?
Easy Apply? That I'm not familiar with. Does anybody know that button?
I've seen it, but
sometimes.
So
Easy
Easy Apply
Yeah.
is the ATX actually lives inside LinkedIn. And will just It's with Easy Apply, the recruiter is able to give some questions, not many, and then your PDF of LinkedIn resume will be forwarded on, and that's it. You don't go to, again, I'm a former developer. You won't go to General Dynamics, careers, and then do all that. All that is foregone. It's Easy Apply, and two sides of the same sword. Yes, you can apply, but you might not get the best candidates. I don't know, but yeah. So there's the Easy Apply, and then there's Apply, which will take you to General Dynamics or whatever company's website. And I think that will go to the applied statistic, no matter what the person does when they're on the careers page.
That's what I've. That's
Easy Apply. Easy Apply is LinkedIn, and it stays in LinkedIn. No, doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, my assumption is that where it sends you to the company's website, where then you submit it through their own portal, or that LinkedIn counts that as an apply because you clicked on the apply button. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, and I think more to the point though, right, is that does it really matter how many people apply?
Right.
Right, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Really, I mean, whether it's 5 or 50, I mean, sure,
Right.
your statistics, but guess what? The recruiter is probably using other sources too. They're recruiting on their own. They've
Yeah.
posted on their job board. They get internal referrals. It's like if you, it's your candidacy standing on its own 2 feet. And as we talk about here a lot, right, around networking, you need to show up before your resume, or at least alongside your resume, right? So whether you apply for the job or however you get the job, you want to try to find an internal champion. You want to try to find somebody who's going to flag your resume to the employer. Do not rest on your laurels. Do not think ever that just because you hit the apply button on LinkedIn or Career Builder or Indeed or whatever the job portal is, that your resume is going to get noticed. A lot of times it doesn't. Especially if you go directly into the employer's applicant tracking system, the ATS, you're now part of thousands of resumes. You want to do your best to find somebody to champion your candidacy. Preferably the CEO, hiring manager, HR person, recruiter. If you can get somebody to get to one of those 4 people, that will increase your chances of getting noticed. So what do? You go to the regular LinkedIn, not the job board. Forget the job board. The regular LinkedIn, look at the search bar in the upper left-hand corner. You pop in the name of the organization, Acme Company, hit enter, and the people will come up. Or you hit the people button first, and the people will come up of who work there. And you can type in CEO or Chief Operating Officer or Chief Executive Officer. Or if you can figure out the title of the hiring manager, put in that title. Try to find one of those 4 people. If one of those 4 people is your second level contact, not third, they're your second level contact, that of course means you have a mutual first level connection, at least one person, maybe multiples. Reach out to that first level connection and say, hi, John, I noticed on LinkedIn you're connected to Mary. Mary's the hiring manager at Acme Company. I recently applied there. Here's my resume and cover letter. Would you mind forwarding it to Mary for extra consideration? Because your resume is going to be like in the black hole, whether it's in LinkedIn, whether it's in Indeed, or whether it's in their applicant tracking system. You want Mary to airlift it out, or Mary tell the recruiter, please airlift this resume out because my friend John said that I should consider this person, right? Super, super important. Now, of course, when you reach out to John, you may not know John very well. I get that. That's true. John may not know Mary very well. I get that. That might be true, but you can try, right? John might be willing to help you. Mary might be willing to consider John's, referral. It's not a recommendation you're asking for, just, extra consideration. You can try, right? Because some people are just going to be kind and will be willing to help you, but at least make the effort. And if it's not one of those 4 people, CEO, HR, whatever, anybody in the organization, any second level, anybody is better than nobody. And have that person, try to refer you on to the hiring manager or the recruiter. Okay. Nathan, and then Anisha. Nathan?
think he's
Oh,
frozen.
Are you
Nathan?
frozen?
He said the
He said
weather
he
is
had
bad.
some weather issues.
Issues, yes. So I
Okay,
knew
so
it.
Yeah.
Anusha, why don't you go until Nathan comes back?
Okay, sure. So I actually have 3 questions, and they all are sort of connected to the conversation that we've just been having. The first one is about that easy apply button. You know, I mean, I think even though they make it very easy for you, especially like on LinkedIn or Glassdoor or any of these platforms, right? Should you do the easy apply, or
Yeah,
should
thanks.
you
So
actually
just
go?
a comment then.
Oh, and
Should you actually go to the?
Anusha, 1 second. I think Nathan doesn't know what we just did. Nathan, can you hear us? Nathan? All right, I'm gonna chat him and let him know. So Anusha, keep going.
I'm sorry. Should you do the easy apply, or should you go to the website to see if the job is posted on the company's website and apply through there? Because you know, you've got the resume, you've got the cover letter, and you can do the easy apply, but then it doesn't give you a chance to answer, you know, questions that you may get through the website. So that's the first question. And so I can ask the next 2, or if you want to answer
Yeah,
that one
just
first.
that one, you know what, I wish I had a really good answer for that, because that part's actually not part of my worldview.
Okay.
Like I sit on the other side. Alexander, did you have a
So
thought?
usually with the easy apply, you won't have another choice because it might be a
Right.
company that's so small they don't want to even bother with a careers page.
Okay.
They will you won't have a choice usually. If it is the case that
Okay.
you go to the company website and there is a careers page, of course you do it direct or actually do it both.
Yep.
Chances are it will be very easy to do
Okay.
it both because again, we're talking about someone who's trying to save money, which might not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say, I've gone through
but you're
those.
never going to get Lockheed, General Dynamics, or whatnot an easy apply. They're always going to have a career page.
Just
Okay.
as an applicant, I've gone through that easy apply quite a few times, and there's typically an option to choose it'll show your resume. It'll say, do you want to use your LinkedIn resume? And it'll show all your listings, and you can choose the job that you want to actually highlight. And then there's often, if not always, an option to add another document. You can either add a cover letter or some other document. At that point, you could distinguish yourself and add a cover letter or something, some supporting document there. So there is some wiggle room in there. And as Alexander was saying earlier, of course, they can also offer a bunch of questions, in which case, it gives you a chance to fill that out. But so there is a little bit of a option for customizing it from my experience.
Okay. And the next 2 questions are actually more what I wanted to focus on. And thank you both, Judah and Alexander. Is Sherry, you mentioned, making a connection on LinkedIn, especially at a company that you find like your first connection or second connection, and reach out to them or reach out to the person, the mutual individual. And I did that last week. I reached out to someone that was recommended. I reached out to them, sent them a message through LinkedIn. I haven't heard back from them. So, how long should you wait before you reach back out to them?
Oh, I got an answer for this. But before I give you the answer, let me make sure I'm understanding. When you said that you reached out to them, was it that you reached out to your first level contact on LinkedIn? Is that right?
No. So I didn't know. Yes, I reached out to the first level contact that knew somebody that worked at XYZ company, correct?
And you reached out to that first level contact on LinkedIn, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so I'm
Yes.
so glad you mentioned this. I want everybody to listen up. Ready? Super important. Most people do not check their LinkedIn messages. I want to let that hang in the air. Most people do not check their LinkedIn messages. Your LinkedIn message could stay there for 3 months before they see it. So here's what you do. Ready? If it is a first level contact, not a second, not a third, a first level contact, you need to go into their contact information section and find their email and send them an email. Okay? Do not rely. Now you can do both. It's fine. Do it 5 ways. It's fine. And let me, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let me pull this up real fast. Do a little show and tell. Sec. Oh my gosh, sorry. They're giving me a code. That's very odd. Hold on a second. Guess they're trying to double confirm it's me. All right. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's the deal. I'm going to pull in, I'm going to pop in Vern because I know that I am first level connected to Vern. Second. Okay, here we go. So pull up Vern because, and only because I'm first level connected. This does not work with seconds and thirds, only with first. Go to the contact info button here. And there's Vern's email. Now I will tell you, Nisha, this only works 98% of the time. 2% of the time, you might have a first level contact who is so private and confidential, they don't even let anybody, even their first level, see their email address. It happens. It's very rare. Most normal people are going to have the email because it defaults to the email address. And so I would do both. I would send a LinkedIn message and I would send an email. Both, because you never know what you're there to check.
Yeah, and I remember, I'm sorry to apologize. Yeah, no, and I remember you had covered this a few weeks ago, I think. But what if you don't know that individual? You have that first level contact that gave you the name of, X, Y, and Z individual.
Yeah.
But what if you don't know that individual?
When you say the individual,
then
if you don't
that's,
know
I guess.
Hold on. You mean you don't know the first level person? Well, that, right?
No, I know the first level person, but they made a recommendation. So I don't know Vern that well. So you're my first level and I don't know Vern, second or third. So how do I get a hold of Vern if I
Okay, so
sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna give, let's go with different scenarios here. Okay. So we'll make it real. So I'm trying to reach Nathan. Okay. Nathan is the hiring manager for Acme Company, right? He's the one ultimately that I want to see my resume. Vern, I noticed on LinkedIn that Vern, my first level, is connected to Nathan. Nathan's my second level. We'll go with that scenario. Okay. So in that scenario, Anusha, are you wondering what you should do if you don't know Vern very well or you don't know Nathan?
I don't know Nathan that well. I'm not connected first or second or third.
Oh, that's different. So this, okay. Thank you. So this whole scenario, that's okay. This whole scenario, we'll take away the words like don't know well. We'll use terms connections. Okay. So this whole scenario only works, that all I'm talking about here is if Nathan, the hiring manager, the CEO, whoever Nathan is, this only works if Nathan is your second level. None of this works if Nathan is your third level. And the reason is LinkedIn will not provide you the name of who's in between you and a third level.
Gotcha.
Okay. Nathan has to be your second level. And certainly if Nathan's not even your third level, you're not even going to know that Nathan exists because there is no fourth level. It's just going to call, they're just going to call it LinkedIn member. And it he literally won't even know his name. If he's your second level, you will know there's a first. If he's your third, you're not going to be able to. Now you could randomly send a third level a connection request, but if that third level is a hiring manager or somebody, it's a little uncouth to do that. If you're a job seeker and you're the hiring manager or the CEO is a third level, you're not going to send a connection request at that point, and the job search is just a little bit like stalky, right? This only works if it's a second level. Does that make sense?
Well,
but let me go one level. Oh, sure, Vern.
Sure. Let me jump in. And correct me if I'm wrong. When you find somebody who's your second level contact, you don't, in almost all cases, you don't know that person.
Correct. That's the point. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know that person. So all you're trying to do is get your first level contact to introduce you to that person.
Right. That's exactly right.
Correct.
That's the point of it. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Now, relationally, there's something else to think about. So in using this Vern Nathan scenario, right? So a lot of the success of this has to do with what's my relationship to Vern and what's Vern's relationship to Nathan. Okay, we always got to think about that. So it happens to be in this literal case, right? I know Vern. I'm going to pretend that I don't know Nathan. Okay.
Yeah.
But I know Vern very well. All right.
Yeah.
So I know, I mean, Vern and I are buds, right? I know that Vern would do a referral. But that said, Vern might say to me, Cheryl, look, I'm happy to help you. However, I don't know Nathan very well. He's a bare acquaintance of mine. And Vern might say to me, look, in fact, I do this to people all the time. Vern might say to me, look, Cheryl, I'm happy to pass your resume along to Nathan on the off chance that he might, be open to hearing from me. But I can't guarantee anything because I just don't know him very well. Okay, fine. Maybe Vern's still willing to do it, but there may not be strength in that relationship. And likewise, if I'm not very friendly with Vern, I'd have to say, Vern, let's just say I've never even met Vern. He's just a first level because whatever, we randomly connected. I would then be a little more formal about my outreach. Hi, Vern. Remember, Vern's my first level. Hi, Vern. You and I are connected on LinkedIn. Let him know who you are. I'm recently applied, I noticed you're connected to Nathan Cooper, recently applied, well, we haven't met before. Would you be open just because, just to make sure that my resume gets noticed? Would you be open to forwarding my application to Nathan for extra consideration? Vern might be a nice guy. It might say, sure. And that's happened before, right? You just have to think relationally in all these things.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I did have one last question, but now that Nathan's on, I don't want to dominate the conversation. So,
Okay.
No.
All right, Nathan, we'll go to you.
I was going to say, if it still applies to the previous, please continue.
Well, it sort of does. So then quick question. So this individual, I was introduced by Connection One to this person that I don't know, but he works at the company, and I wanted to just set up a networking call with them. And I did mention that I was applying for a position there, whether they'd be willing to have a conversation. And then it wasn't through, I just, I went on their LinkedIn contact, and it says, message. So I messaged them. That's when I'm like, I'm not sure. They don't know me. They only know this, other individual we have in common. Yeah.
They don't know the other individual you have in common, or they do?
They know the individual, but I don't know them. So without being stalkery, I don't know how to follow up to just say, yeah.
So let's use real names. Okay. So let's pretend that you're actually, would you mind using first, because we're not going to know who they are. Would you mind using first names for both people?
Tim.
Tim is the person
so I know Jeff, but I don't know Tim. Jeff introduced me to Tim. Yeah.
Perfect. So Jeff, right? So there are different ways you could do this. And in fact, you could do multiples. So you could write to Tim. Tim's the one you want to meet, right? I would write to you could actually send him a connection request. That's the first thing I would do. Hi, Tim, Jeff referred you to me in the hopes that you might be able to provide some insight around Acme Company. Okay. Would you be open to connecting? Again, Tim might not see his LinkedIn connection requests. A lot of people don't check them if they're gainfully employed, right? Or I'm sure a lot of you have had that experience when you're gainfully employed and you're not check. So, but send it, number one. Number two, then double back and then ask Jeff if he would mind sending a note to Tim directly, an email, an e-introduction. Jeff says to Tim, hi, Tim, and CCs you, right? Hi, Tim, want to introduce you to my colleague, Anuja. She's interested in getting an informational interview, blah, 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 right? And literally broker the introduction. But I would do both.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Appreciate it. Thank you, Nathan, for letting me ask that question.
Yeah, I'm going to take us off topic, so I just want to make sure if it was related. And thanks, Chair, for letting me try and jump in there. I guess 2 comments and then my question. So back to Anna's, I've seen on LinkedIn where if I apply to a position, it takes me to work day or whatever. On LinkedIn, it'll actually say, "Did you apply to this position?" It'll give me a little button, and I select yes, I did apply. I've needed that to circle back around and say, let's say somebody comes back to me 2 months later, so I forgot I even applied to this. So I've actually used that to come back to, okay, yeah, I did apply for this position. Here's a job rec and all that. So that's the first one. The second one.
Well, Nathan,
I think it
could
was-
you clarify
yeah.
the question in there for us?
Okay, so yeah, in it, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, it was asking about how many times have you applied to a position, the counter and all of that. And then if it takes you to a different website, let's say it takes you to General Dynamics, and if it's counted or not. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll go back to the LinkedIn posting, and then there'll be a question below the apply button, and it says, did you apply for this position? Yes or no? And if I did, then I'll click yes. And it just helps me keep track of who I've applied to, if it takes me to the actual company website or Workday or whatever. So, it's just general, housekeeping for me to keep track of who I've actually applied to.
So you're sharing this as a
Just
as a
FYI.
practice, as a tip for people.
Right,
Okay.
right. This is just something I've learned from doing this. So hopefully, that answers it provides a little bit of clarity around that. Yeah. So I guess I'll just go to my question. So let's say you've got a recruiter that just reaches out to you out of the blue. All right, they don't know much about the position, and this happened to me this week with Facebook, or Meta. So they reached out to me a couple days ago. They've got very, very, very limited knowledge about the position. They've got a copy of your resume, and look, I'm just going to be blunt. They're relatively early career, not a lot of experience. But they've found you and have identified you as a potential candidate to speak to. So where my question is going is I'm working with two different levels. I'm working with people who their job is to reach out to you and hopefully, set up an interview with you. But then you're working with the hiring team who actually is highly qualified and they understand what the job role actually is. So when I'm crafting the resume, do you always advise I'm only focusing on getting it in front of the hiring team, or is there any benefit with keeping the skill level, I don't want to say basic, but to a point where someone who doesn't understand the job is still going to make a phone call to me?
So this is a really interesting question, Nathan. So first of all, let me just acknowledge that what you're talking about here is the most normal thing in the world when it comes to applying to larger companies. I mean, I can't, it is like encyclopedia definition, what you've just said. Because what's happened, so most, you're dealing with what's called a corporate recruiter. Corporate recruiters are different than headhunters. Headhunters, like myself, we're third party. Corporate recruiters are often entry level, not always. I mean, you obviously have ones that are seasoned, clearly. Yeah. A lot of them are early career, very, very normal. They have, I'm making up a number, 30 to 50 open job requisitions on their desk, easily. All kinds of professions, all kinds of everything. And their job, their main job, yes, they have to interview people, of course, but their main job is what we call in the business sourcing candidates. They get out there and they literally are trained to use technology, put in Boolean strings and all these different things to go find Nathans. Lots and lots and lots and lots of Nathans. And they're doing quick keyword searches. Okay, especially in technology where it's like C++ and Java and blah, 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 right? That kind of thing. But even beyond that, just they're looking for keywords. And they're just like reaching out, very casually. They are ambassadors, if you will, of the hiring manager. The hiring manager asked for a unicorn. The hiring manager said, please find somebody that has these key skills, these keywords. PMO and Java and Agile and right? The hiring manager gave the requisition to the recruiter to source for all of these different skills. Your job is to make sure that resume speaks to the hiring manager, because the recruiter is simply the ambassador of the hiring manager. They may not be able to, the recruiter may not be able to interview you very well, but what they're sourcing for are all of the keywords on the job description, which came from the hiring manager. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Don't dumb it down at all. Like, boost it up.
Keep Keep at the appropriate level. Got it.
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here's an example. I'm finding that Dice, so our resumes on Dice, and they're just calling, and as an example, where they're finding me. So,
Yeah,
But
that's
point taken. I'll make sure it's appropriate for the level that I'm interviewing for. I'm sorry, Vern, I cut you off.
No, I was just to say, isn't Dice one of the key places for a lot of tech jobs?
A lot, many,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's my opinion, it's the original one, way before all the others, but now I think it's taken a backseat to LinkedIn. So anyway, don't restrict yourself to just Dice.
Anisha?
So this question was related to references. I had a call with a networking group last week. We were talking about references and how far back you should go, because I worked for the same, and I don't know if this is a question that others might have, I worked for the same individual for like 20 plus years. And then I've, had references that I've used, and two have retired, but one because he was also a mentor. So the question is, how far back should you look for mentors, and then should you have a personal as well as a professional mentor, and who should you reach out to?
You need to say mentors or references?
I'm sorry, references. One was he was a mentor, but he was also a reference. How far back should you go to look for references, and should you reach out to people that have retired that you haven't worked with in, I don't know, for 5+ years? So that's my question.
I'll let you handle this one first, and then I'll comment.
I think you really have to look at that person by person in terms of, they may be retired, but if they knew your work well, and if they're retired and they haven't, let's use technology because it's the simplest example. If they haven't kept up with the latest technology and you're applying for a job for the latest technology, and they're going to get a call from the company to talk about your skills and the latest technology, but they haven't kept up with it, then you probably don't want to use that mentor or that person that you worked with 5 or 10 years ago. On the other hand, I would have no problem, listing as one of my references, a woman I worked for 20 years ago. Shira knows Angela Spicer. I would have no problem listing her as a reference, and I know that she would do an unbelievable job giving me a reference. So to me, it's you've really got to look at it person by person and what the job is, and where your skills are today, and so forth and so on.
And in addition to that, just as another layer, employers are usually looking for references for the last few jobs. Now, if the person knew you 20 years ago and you've never been in touch with them since, probably not as, credible. If you work with them a long time ago, you've kept in touch, they know kind of, they've like really, really been close touch. Yeah, I mean, you may very well want to. But in general, employers are looking for the last few jobs, like in the last 10 years.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of your feedback.
Shira, I thought Vivian put a post
yes, I'm sorry. And just so you guys know, in this particular format, thank you so much for putting in your chats. I'm not able to sort of read and digest as well as opine and stuff all at the same time. So thank you, Vern, for calling that out. So Vivian says, I think we were talking about networking. All this seems very formal, and belief that you send connect requests to multiple people in the company, and more chances than not you will get a positive response from more than one. Yeah, Vivian, do you want to elaborate on that, on your thinking around that?
Yes, I believe in the Vern School of Networking. And so, build up your networks. Number one, if there's only one person in the hiring department, perhaps adjacent people in the company who would have that relationship. If you reach out to 3 or 4 on LinkedIn and, LinkedIn requests, more often than not, people say yes because they see who else you're related to or connected to. And that increases the possibility of having a relationship. Vern, please agree or disagree with that policy.
Well,
And
go ahead, keep going. Yeah.
and
Go
then the
ahead.
second thing that also, I think the same person was asking, Anuja, regarding the references. I reached out to about 5 or 6 people who had either worked with me, who were colleagues, or who were my supervisors, and then asked them if they would be willing to be my references. So depending on the job, you know, if it's more related to commerce, I'll use my connection at Department of Commerce. If it's more related to security, I'll use one of my generals who are my references. So it's not just one size fits all. I try to cater to what the job is.
Yep, good advice.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
In terms of what Vivian's saying, I don't think there's any harm in trying to reach out to as many people on LinkedIn as possible who work for that company, and you may get a hit or two. It will take some time, but if to find, again, and Shira and I say this all the time, to find a champion is a critical step in the process. And this is hard work sometimes to sit there and go through and send all these requests. But I would agree with Vivian. You may just, find somebody in a company, and all of a sudden they're willing to help you. So
it could be helpful to sort of look at it from 2 sides, right? So there's the sort of, in general, relationship building side of your networking, right? Yeah. Always be building connections, reach out to, in general, like just relationship build. People who would do similar work that you do, similar industries. And to Vivian's point, hey, so-and-so in this company, oh, you can connect to other people. In general, you want to be making sure that your relationship building is up to them. And specifically, when you have a particular opportunity and you want to go after particular contact, there is a process that we talked about earlier that you can use. And also, to Vern's point, you can do multiple contacts. In fact, I might have mentioned, might have been last week. There was this one time I was on a panel with several other recruiters, and we were giving job search advice to a bunch of HR people, interestingly enough. Anyway, I remember this one recruiter sitting on the panel to my left, and she's like, look, she goes, she said, no joke. She said, I had 5 people recommend me for this job, 5. And she said, probably by the 3rd one, they're like, all right, we'll interview her, right? And she got the job, right? You don't just have, it doesn't just have to be one person recommending you. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, as many. Just have people say, please, 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 please consider Judah. Please, please, please consider Vivian, right? It's okay. You can do that.
I guess the difference that I would say in terms of relationships is, as Shira said, you should always be building your relationship and building a relationship with people that, again, in the contacts count world, we call an advocate, somebody who will help you and you'll help them at a drop of a pin because you know each other really well. Those relationships take time and effort to really get to that point where you know each other really well. In Vivian's comment, reaching out to people who work at this company to hopefully forward your resume. I mean, that's a connection, but it's not a relationship. And certainly there are people out there. So for instance, most people, and you will all appreciate this, as job seekers, you know how difficult this process is. And anybody who helps you in this process, you're so grateful for. When you land a job and somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, I'm in the job search, could you help me? You're more than likely going to be willing to help them because you know what it's like. And so there's these connections, but there's a difference between being connected to someone and having a relationship with someone.
That's right.
And in fact, I just had this, I think I mentioned this on this call. I had a relationship, somebody reached out to me, I talked to him, and he connected me to another woman. And I said, well, how do you know Mark? And she says, I don't. Right. So this is what happens on LinkedIn. She didn't know him. She said, I think he attended one of my seminars a month ago. Now, why Mark had the gracious, time and effort to introduce me to Colleen, who then introduced me to someone who I might have a contract with for contacts count. I don't know, but that's how it happens sometimes.
Yeah,
So-
think of it like you're in a networking meeting, a networking reception, right? Shake hands with so-and-so. Oh, they're like, you know, you should meet so-and-so. Then you walk across the room, meet so-and-so. That's what LinkedIn is like, right? Unless you happen to have a really good relationship, then someone can really refer you. But LinkedIn, at the end of the day, is just a database. Relationship rules still apply. Just be thinking relationally, but if you don't know somebody, just mention you don't know them. Would you be kind enough to help me? Some people might not. Some people might see your message. Some people might not see your message. Some people have the time, some people don't have the time, but keep on planting seeds because you never know who's going to be able to help. So, all right, we're rounding out on our time here. Any other last minute questions before we wrap up?
Well, if you're offering for a last minute question, you can keep it brief. I rolled it into my first question, but I didn't clarify it. What's unique about associations, applying for a job with an association?
You say what's unique. There's a lot of ways we could answer that. What are you referring to something specific?
Just in terms of applying for a position, just, you know, like a job, American Advancement, American Association.
Yeah.
Advancement of Science, for
Again,
example.
I'm so sorry to to niggle here. When you
No,
say
please,
applying,
please.
are you like literally talking about physically applying? Like, is there some like in the application process? Like, I
Or
want to
just-
make sure I'm answering your question.
Great question. I think just mindset, and I mention that because through our meetings, a lot of times you'll bring up that this meeting has a lot of association people. And so
Mhm.
there's this sense of, oh, okay, there's something unique clearly about the association world. And I'm wondering, at just a high level of things that, you know, with, you know, 2-3 minutes left here that you would, you know.
Wow. Okay. Lots we all could say.
Okay.
Of us who are in that world. I'll just mention just a couple little things. So, in no particular order. So, first of all, associations come in different sizes. The one you just mentioned happens to be a huge 900-pound gorilla, AAAS.
Okay.
One of the largest associations out there, multiple hundreds of people. Now, by the way, hundreds of people for an association is considered large. In the corporate world, that's considered tiny. The largest association that I know of is AARP, which has 3,000 employees, and that's, I mean, massive. The large associations are considered anyone over about 100 people. Okay, so AAAS, in fact, they used to be they're an old client of mine. I happen to know them from back in the day. They would have they would actually have a corporate, if they still do, would have a corporate recruiter. Very rare, very, very, very rare for an association to have a corporate recruiter. Formal big HR department. I think that last I knew they had one recruiter doing work. And so they're going to feel more formal. They're going to feel more like a company, if you will, like corporate kind of entity. I don't know I'm presuming they have an applicant tracking system, all the things that we talk about in the corporate side of things. AAAS will have that, okay, typically. But they're very rare. There's probably 20 of those in the whole country that are like that. But most associations are pretty small, under 100 employees, under 50 employees. In fact, 60% of associations are under 10 employees, which means that it might very well be even the executive director who's doing the hiring, right? They probably don't even have an office manager or anybody like that. Or maybe the hiring manager themselves is doing it, one of the two. So it's going to be a lot less formal. They might not even know how to, I mean, they might post on LinkedIn. They might go through a lot of them will go through their own networks. They'll have like, for example, I happen to run an association CEO roundtable with 60, 70 people, and they might go, hey, John, hey, does anybody know anybody who, right? Very sort of informal networking. That's just from the job seeker perspective. And of course, those of us who know that this community could wax on and on about how associations are designed and the departments. But I will tell you that I'm going to make up a number, okay? Totally making this up. 90% of the time, associations, like most other sectors, will tend to hire from the association sector because they like people who understand the sector. Now, in the creative world, it's a little different, but I will tell you that most associations don't have a creative department. Very rare. They will usually outsource their creative work. Now, they might have a marketing, like director of marketing, but that person's going to work with a marketing agency. They're not going to usually hire writers and certainly not a web developer. I mean, for an association to hire a web developer, I mean, I can't even tell you how large they'd have to be. 99 times out of 100, the kind of work you do, Judah, is going to be outsourced. It's going to be through an agency. So that maybe for you specifically, that might help you in terms of whether to pursue that kind of. But AAAS might. I mean, they're pretty large, so you know, it's possible.
Great, thank you. That's yeah, and the other thing I've discovered along this journey is that the creative department, the creatives, it's a very unique subset of all the what everybody's doing here in terms of job search and finding. This is just I'm in a different class.
It's a whole different thing. Again, it's mostly outsourced from most companies because they just don't have the full-time need for people who do graphic design, web design, that kind of thing. It's a one.
There's actually in the job description for this, it's for publication designer, and they have six publications. So it is like you said,
And they are very pubs heavy.
And in the job description it's managing vendors for for certain projects and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so I participate in the streaming world a little bit, and for whatever reason, all my life I've had designers and artists around me. Yeah, you need to find the associations for you that's specifically niche in that. Over the last couple of months, I have gone to a business development for creatives type meeting, and they will talk to you about your bullseye of influence, anywhere from, the outside will be the haters. In the middle, there's a middle bullseye that'll be just people that don't understand or know your work. And then way on the inside, your most loyal followers. You need to find the people that speak that kind of language and whatnot, right? So just a food for thought.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this portion of the call. And so as per usual, once we end the formal part of the call, I'm going to stay on for a short prayer call for those who want to join me in some prayer. And look forward to seeing everybody next week. All right. Have a blessed day, everyone.